Why do some products mean something to us, while other products with essentially the same features and benefits do not? This is the central question that Patrick Hanlon explores in his book Primal Branding. His answer: brands are belief systems, and building a belief system around your brand creates preferential appeal with your users and consumers. While most companies try and communicate a single brand message, Hanlon argues that there are actually 7 distinct messages that must be delivered together, what he calls the primal code. When all the pieces are present and working together, they tap into our innate human desire to belong to something larger than ourselves. We end up with something that people want to believe in, that they feel a part of. And it's no longer just about the task of getting myself fed, washing my clothes, driving somewhere. It becomes about the experience and being part of the club. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the 7 pieces of primal code, explain those with some examples. We'll talk about how this applies to the world of retail media and e-commerce. And I'm also going to share a little bit about how I'm using primal branding in this very podcast and how I'm thinking about it. And maybe you have some ideas for me as well. Let's start by explaining the 7 pieces of primal code. So firstly, we have the creation story. And this is the origin story explaining how your brand got started. And this is such a primal thing, right? We have evolved as humans to learn through stories. Every great civilization has a strong storytelling culture. And the best way to engage someone is to tell a compelling story. So to make brands real and relatable, we want to be sharing their creation story. So think about, the story of Jeff Bezos writing Amazon's business plan in the back of his car while driving to Seattle, or, the office doors being turned into desks at the Amazon headquarters, showcasing the company's frugality. Every great brand has an origin story. Second piece of the primal code is a creed. So this is a fundamental purpose that your brand has beyond making money. So we can think about Google's mission to organize the world's information, or Patagonia's commitment to the environment. The creed answers the crucial question: why do you belong in people's lives? Third piece of the primal code is icons. These are the instantly recognizable symbols of your brand. So you may be immediately thinking of logos. That's certainly one aspect, but it's also the sounds, smells, touches, textures of your brand as well, in the ways that people interact with it. So my favorite example is Starbucks, where we have the iconic mermaid logo, but we also have things like the white cup, which is instantly recognizable from across the street. We have the green barista aprons. We have the wood-toned environments in the stores. These are all icons for Starbucks. Part 4 of the primal code is rituals. These are meaningful, repeated interactions that people have with your brand. These interactions can be good, enriching touch points that intensify the brand experience. They can be flat or even negative. It's worthwhile charting all of these. Some examples of rituals are the unboxing experience of opening up an Apple product, and the very particular elements of that unboxing experience. Rituals can be big or small. They could be, we have national holidays, we have weddings. These are big rituals. But then we also have rituals like the daily coffee run, the weekly grocery shop. These are rituals as well. Part number 5 of the primal code is sacred words. These are the special words, the language that your believers use to signal belonging. If you know the language, you belong. So coming back to Starbucks, it's the grande or venti, it's the phraseology and terminology that creates insider status. Part 6 of the Primal Code is pagans. This is the opposition, the competition that helps to define who you're not. It can be competition, but it can also be non-believers. And Hanlon argues in this book that part of saying who you are and what you stand for is also declaring who you are not and what you don't stand for. This can be difficult for brands because you don't want to alienate a potential customer, but it is a very important aspect of creating something that people feel like they belong part of, is establishing what you're not. And then the final part of the Primal Branding Code is the leader. This is the visionary who embodies your values. So it's not just necessarily going to be the founder or the CEO. It can actually be other leaders that are found within the strata of your organization. They can be team leaders, product line experts, evangelists, who are all important to the success or failure of the brand. Let's now talk about how these concepts can be used in retail media and e-commerce. So first one, fairly obvious, is incorporating these pieces of the Primal Code into your product content and advertising. So if you have icons, you have visual sounds, cues that bring people back to your brand. You're using the language of your brand, helping people feel like they're part of the club through the sacred words that are associated with your brand. Origin stories of the brand can be shared if there's an opportunity for more storytelling type of content, as well as leaders. These could be your influencers, your spokespeople, your product experts that you might bring in as part of your product or brand content on retail websites. So those are the obvious ones, but the power of the framework extends beyond marketing. One great example from the book is a CEO used it when competing for MBA graduates and trying to recruit them. So the graduates were they wanted international experience and things like that, which she couldn't offer, but she carefully wove the company's Primal Code elements into her interviews, sharing the origin story, showing them their icons, explaining their rituals, and outlining their competitor set. And it was a huge success. All these MBA graduates wanted to come work for this company, even though they weren't offering, ostensibly what was on the graduates' wish list from an employer. So I also think that in the world of retail media, it's ultimately a communication tool, whether that's customer facing or amongst your peers, team, and executives. And finally, a little bit of behind the scenes. I'm using these concepts with this podcast and video series. So a few things that I've worked in here. The big one really is ritual. So very deliberately, the concept of the show is dropping episodes at 6 a.m. every weekday, which establishes a ritual. You listen or watch while you're walking the dog, while you're in the car, commuting to work, while you're going to the gym. So the ritual aspect is very deliberate. Second is recognizable icons. There's the little character that we developed with the branding, but also the coffee pouring sound in the intro and outro. So I want, to get people to associate that coffee pouring sound with the podcast. Origin story, something I've sort of leaned into a little bit more in other formats. Maybe I could bring a little bit more into the show. And the creed. The creed is delivering a point of view rather than fluff. So yeah, look, there's some other elements after reading this book I think I could do a better job of bringing in, like the sacred words. We've got a lot of jargon in the industry. I use a lot of jargon, and I think that's fine because people understand it and they feel part of the club. But maybe there's some sacred words that I could introduce for this show specifically. And defining our pagans. This is a difficult one. I don't want to alienate people. I'm more of a connector, so that's a little challenging for me, but I need to think about it a bit more. So Primal Branding gives us a framework for creating meaning, not just marketing. And in a very fragmented and competitive landscape like we have today, it's making meaning and connection, helping your customers feel part of something bigger than themselves. That's what's going to make the difference between a forgettable transaction and a brand that people really believe in. Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.